Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all and peace out to the rest of you. Yeah, so hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Let me go ahead and start this message off right quick. Instead of wasting you all's time, I'm going to speak fairly quickly so that I get through this message. I got two cousins, a pair of cousins, from, I think it's the same city in which ARC grew up. These cousins are also cousins to each other. They're first cousins to each other. They are fourth cousins to my brother and me, third to my mother. One of them has been very responsible. He has never really been an egghead. He wore glasses and he was a responsible guy. You think he was a nerd, no social skills? No, he has them. He just wears glasses and he was responsible. He sounds like DJ Vlad. His voice, just his voice sounds like DJ Vlad. When I heard DJ Vlad interviewing somebody, I thought it was my cousin behind the camera. I fit you not. They sound the same. The other cousin, his first cousin that grew up with him as though they were siblings, even though they're first cousins. Each one is closer to the other than they are to their own siblings. And the other cousin grew up being a womanizer, pretty much like ARC. Started off in high school just going through one after the other, after the other, after the other. He sees ladies differently, of course. Now, growing up, our own mother looked at him, so to speak, and said, listen, you two can afford to learn from this cousin that's a womanizer. And you don't have to do what he does and run through as many women as he does, per se. But the thing is that in order for you to have an option in who you marry, for you to be able to choose who you're going to marry yourself, what you must do is learn what he knows, because frankly, if you don't know what it is that he knows, you're not going to have the option. So she was pretty much admitting that she realized that the ladies of our generation were different from her own. That you really can't be like the other cousin that was responsible and learned and took his studies seriously and his future seriously, that wasn't going to cut it with him. And she admitted this to a certain extent. And she didn't necessarily give it a pass. It's just that there wasn't much that could be done to put a stop to that trend. That's it. So my brother and I took this to heart. And since I moved to Atlanta where these cousins lived, I tried to learn this as much as I could academically afford to spend time studying this. It was like having another class to take. I got to learn this in order to actually decide my life. I had to learn this in addition to every other subject. I had to study the history, the physics, the biology, the math, the foreign languages. And I'll tell you straight, sophomore year, I got too busy for that. They threw these business classes at us that nobody needs, the accounting, unless you're minoring in accounting. They threw in these filter classes, the ones that weed you out. Threw those at us. I didn't have time to study this. This last summer, I went to visit the States, and as some of y'all know, I spent a little over a month there, about a month and a week. For a few of those days, I was at my brother's house, because he now lives fairly far north of where we grew up. Still in the South, though. So when I went up to see him, spend some time with him, and man, it was good to see him again after 2 years face to face. We sat on my couch and we were talking and chopping it up. I mean, we sat on his couch. I sat on his couch and we were talking, chopping it up. And of course, we reminisced on many things. I mean, we watched some of the old movies that from our childhood, just for nostalgia's sake. And we watched them with my kids. We watched Teen Wolf, Back to the Future, stuff like this. But when it was just him and me, we chopped it up on the couch and we talked a little bit about my son. And I told him that I didn't want my son to come up with the ideas that we'd been raised with, and that he was already aware of certain things that really we should have known that no adult told us when we were coming up. And I pointed to the cousin the womanizing cousin. My brother lived with him several years ago in another city in the South. And my brother said, oh yeah, about him, look, man, I can't officially diagnose him, but I'm just going to tell you, I read the books. I mean, I read the manual. Every single symptom of narcissism he had at some point or another. He just didn't have them all at one time. It's like he read the book too, but he would always have some symptoms. We didn't pick up on it, but when the book came out and I read it, yeah, he's got them. Textbook case. I just don't call him one because I'm not the professional in that field. Then I straight said, look, man, your nephew, my son, is one of many men that's going to be asked to pay for what our cousin did to all these women with whom, the women, these gorgeous, attractive women that could have had anybody that chose him. And they're going to be dealing with some heartbreak and disappointment and all that. And they're going to look to guys like my son, like your nephew, to pay for it. I don't want him trying to go through that. I don't want him thinking that someone like this cousin of ours is someone to look up to and from whom to learn. Not because they don't know something, but because they can't explain it. Our cousin can't explain this stuff. And he said, well, yeah, I can see what you mean. But I mean, you don't want him to be, you don't want your son to just be stuck by himself, no options, do you? And I said, well, man, that's what it's coming down to anyway. He's got a plan, but it don't involve staying in the West trying to find someone. Eventually, he's going to ditch the West or he's going to stay by himself. He knows those are the options. Those are only two safe options. And ditching the West isn't a guarantee of a safe relationship, or rather marriage, because that's what he better do if he's going to be with someone. But he knows that's not a guarantee, but it is guaranteed here in the States, in which we're sitting on your couch now, that the options aren't safe. They're dangerous. The safe options are indoors. You don't meet them. They're already taken anyway. That's what's out there. He knows that it's about him giving and her taking, and that's it. Ain't no fairness. I mean, the idea of fairness is gone. My son knows this. My brother said, well, it's not quite that bad and that bleak, is it? And I said, well, yeah, it is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Things have gotten so bad for his age group that you got ladies sitting in their cars, pointing their phone cameras at themselves and having meltdowns because they're not being approached. And we're talking when they're young. These young cats are looking and they're not making approaches. They don't even have to. They don't have the testosterone levels. The studies have shown that their testosterone levels have dropped. And my brother didn't know about that, but he balked and said, oh, okay. And I said, well, yeah. And it's a good adaptation to have in this environment, because you got a lot of people looking to me too somebody. And you take, goodness, you take just about any man with prescription glasses on to correct their vision. And if they don't act like they don't see her, she's going to feel creeped out. Just prescription glasses is enough for women in the West to feel creeped out because somebody looked at them or saw them. And they're going to me too them. False accusations ain't no joke. He and I were sitting not too far from Atlanta when we had this conversation. And I told him, don't forget about April Mason's cousin. And she never apologized for blaming other black men for that. And he didn't know who April Mason was. And I said, well, in certain circles, she's a famous matchmaker. Even I know about her, living over in the Gulf. I know about her. cousin put a false police report out. Before April found out it was false, she was blaming normal black men for not coming to her cousin's rescue. Then the police got video evidence that she falsified the report, filed a false report. And April never apologized for attacking black men for not defending her cousin. Look, that's what's out there waiting on them. Meanwhile, our cousin that's a womanizer just been going through women that have all these options in men, even famous women. I understand what it is now. My brother started to tell me some of the blue pill stuff that he knew as an interpretation, and he ain't completely blue pilled. He ain't completely got the blinders on, but he started with that, and I let him talk. But then I said, look, if you take this humanizing cousin and you strip away the narcissism and put in a sense of responsibility, who do you have? And he said, well, I don't know. And then I said to him, you have the other cousin, the doctor. That's who you have. And he said, well, I mean, the other doctor, when you around him enough, you'll see some social skills lacking, but it ain't that bad. And I told him, yeah, maybe so, but everybody's lacking in them. Everybody lacks some social skill or another. We're human. That doctor's not a narcissist. That doctor didn't have kids that none of the rest of us knew about in the family until they turn 18 and get a Facebook account and reach out to us, like the womanizer did. You saw his daughter when she reached out to you. She was trying to meet his family members through Facebook because he didn't tell us about her. When I found out about my son, I let the family know. Hey, we got another family member. The womanizing cousin didn't do that. He hid everything. My brother admitted, you know what? Yeah, he did, because he hid some other stuff too. Smaller stuff, like when he wasn't in school, he didn't tell anybody he'd flunked out and he was waiting tables and living off women. And I said, okay, now let's talk about that. Look at these ladies, highly educated, nice to look at, a lot of them exotical in some form or fashion. And he just went through them. It was nothing. Let's be honest, man. He didn't succeed with them, even though he's a narcissist and he's not like the other cousin that became a doctor early. He succeeded with them because of that. That's what it was. Whatever social skills the other cousin lacked, guess what? He's not a narcissist. Apparently, the womanizing cousin lacks more like empathy. So when it comes down to it, it is not. There's nothing natural to justify why they chose him and didn't choose DJ Vlad. What it came down to is that they knew. And they picked who they picked, not just in spite of what was missing, but because of what's missing. They didn't want these relationships to last forever, until they'd been with them for a while and they liked the thrill. They didn't really want it to last forever. So when it didn't last, they could sit up and say, well, look at him. He was like this, he was like that, and it's true, but they picked him and they kept validating him one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. Meanwhile, DJ Vlad started womanizing when he finally became a paid physician. You ever look at it and notice that he won't get married, but the womanizing cousin now goes through one marriage after the other, after the other, after the other, even more than me? And he's the one leaving them? You ever notice what that's about? My brother nodded and said, well, yeah, he is on either his fourth or fifth now. And I said, okay, exactly. Now, DJ Vlad, or the cousin that sounds like him, that's who I'm calling DJ Vlad. DJ Vlad has girlfriends one after the other. And then my brother said, well, he don't even care that much about it because he'll go down to Latin America frequently. And that's not all he's doing, but he gets that in while he's there. And I said, okay, you know what? We're going to talk more about that later. But yeah, he does. He knows something about when you're down there. Now, you visited once with him. You saw how he got down. But he knows something about the difference between here and there because of the amount of time that he spends over there. He sees that you don't have to be a narcissist in order to win with them. Over here, that's what you gotta be. You're saying that there's that the few things, the two things that are wrong with him are why he's failing. No, what I'm telling you is that those are that in actuality, it is what is deeply wrong with the other cousin. That's why he's succeeding. And it is what is not wrong with DJ Vlad that is why he has failed in the States with them up until he became a practicing physician. And now that he's a practicing physician, he won't necessarily mess with the ones living in Atlanta where he's living now, or even in the States. He doesn't even fly to Vegas. He flies to Latin America. What is he doing? He's ditching the West, man. In the end, my brother said that he had grown up feeling like something was missing and that he needed to look at this womanizing cousin to learn things. And that's how I felt too. What my brother did not know, and he doesn't know about this channel, but what my brother did not know was that when I had lunch with DJ Vlad and another family friend, I'll call namesake because we got the same first name, and then with another friend of his, a doctor, I found out something from the friend of his that's a doctor. Now, he and this other doctor are close. The other doctor I'll refer to as U. I mean the letter U as an initial. And he and I chopped it up after we finished the lunch and everything. I asked him how his wife was doing. He said, "Oh, I don't have one. We've been divorced." I said, "Oh, okay." And he told me, "Oh yeah, I mean, we get along and we raise the kids still, but the kids are pretty much grown at this point." He said, "I'm doing my thing. I'm about to start an online income." And then I said, "Do you just so happen to travel by Latin America by chance frequently?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And then I said, "Would you say that the ladies there treat you better than the ones up here?" And he said, "Absolutely. So you know about this, huh?" I can twist my hand into the shape of an S, the letter S. So I did so that my daughters couldn't see they couldn't see through me to see my hand signal. And I said, "Does this particular letter mean anything?" The light went off in his eyes. Then I configured my hand into an M, and I said, "What about this? Do they start something? Are they the beginnings of something that mean anything?" And he said, yeah, they do." So when my daughters were a little bit further away, I said, "So you know about SYSBM, huh?" And he was like, "Yeah." So then I told him about the channel. I knew it was safe to do so. If he knows about this, then this means that my cousin, DJ Vlad, also knows about this. Gentlemen, the reason I tell you the things I tell you is not out of bitterness. I tell you these things I tell you because, and mind you, this is something I found out last summer, but I tell you these things I tell you because I've seen what has happened in our own family. You see, that cousin has been a womanizer. Has not succeeded like what we would think. For one, he can't stop womanizing. So what he's doing now is he's getting married to ladies that feel powerless in the States. He's marrying ladies not even from the Caribbean islands, but largely from Central America. They're from specific nations to which people are afraid to be deported due to political or gang violence. He marries them and then he divorces them. And in the meantime, he cheats. He can't quit cheating. He's gotten so used to jumping from one to the next, to the next, to the next, he cannot stop cheating. Now at this point, he makes his own money. I mean, he's in a highly paid field, but he just can't be faithful. His first wife was sharp, educated, gorgeous, successful, even somewhat famous where she lived at that time. He couldn't keep it in his pants with her. He was cheating with secretaries and other clerks where he worked and flirting with others that weren't interested, and they reported him. So he was getting in trouble. This is not success. He's got a grown daughter that doesn't know him that well. He's had several other abortions. And now at this point, where he lives, pretty much every woman that's an American citizen can find out easily what he's like. Now, he used to be able to succeed with these same ladies, not so much now. Because where he can earn this living that he enjoys, where he can do this is no longer Atlanta. So it's smaller, so they know. They can find out. And as a matter of fact, part of his fame is in being the ex-husband of his first ex-wife. We in the family look at the divorce from his first ex-wife because she's a family friend, and we say, well, at least we got her out of the deal. That's a joke. Usually you look at a good cousin that was born, or a good niece or nephew born, and you say, at least we got him or her out of the deal. No, we look at that and say, at least we got her out the deal. An in-law that was already a family friend before. Gentlemen, he didn't succeed in the long run. I tell you what I tell you because some of this stuff I know, and more of this stuff even I have learned in the last summer, which is well after I got this channel started, and well after you really took it to the next level. And I thank you all for doing so. Those of you that hit subscribe or share or like, whichever one you pressed, especially if you hit the share button. But before you all started doing this, about 2.5 years ago, there were a lot of these things I know. I wanted you gentlemen to understand I am seeing these things with my own eyes and hearing them with my own ears when I tell you all. I don't even say this out of hatred, because every Western woman is not a wicked witch of the West. We know that. But let's be honest, who's out there, who's about? And frankly, even Western women that aren't wicked witches of the West still have brainwashing they got to get rid of, just like we had to do. I had one tell me I don't really need to talk too much about fairness and justice. She doesn't mean any harm, but she's sitting up saying, I don't need to talk about fairness and justice. That's the agent software being activated. And she's not even aware of it. It's not malicious on her part, but that's what it is. Don't talk so much about it because a lot of this is subjective. It is subjective, but let's be honest. Whenever there is this impression that men are getting too much and doing too little, especially if they're normal men and they're not abnormally tall or wealthy or famous or built or something like that, or just they're not walking around with 8 inches soft swinging. You know, when it's not something exceptional about this guy, but he seems to be getting a good deal, people take issue with it. I mean, think about how many times these guys are passed up simply because a lady looks and says, I just think it's too good a deal for him. He ain't even bad. It's just too easy a deal for him. He needs to work harder and get less. Stop and think about that. At the mention of fairness and justice in marriages, some of them think, well, it's not really that simple. No, when it seems to be that the man is getting too much, but he's not an exceptional man, then all of a sudden it is. But then if he's like ARC and he's just abnormally tall, or he just has the pheromones from so many women in the past, like my womanizing cousin, then all of a sudden they overlook all of this. He can sleep on the couch. He can eat the kids' snacks. He don't have to pay rent. And gentlemen, what I'm telling you is that the cousin of mine that failed with him until he became a practicing physician did not fail because of what was wrong. He failed because of what wasn't wrong. Since then, he's had girlfriends. I don't recommend it for you. I recommend marriage, but not necessarily in front of one of the state courts or the county courthouses over there. But yeah, I don't recommend fornication, but he's been through that. I think about twice he's found out that the ladies with whom he was involved were married to someone else. Both times, the husbands were taking good care of them. That's the reason why he fears marriage. That's one reason why. There's some other things going on, but I wanted you to understand that in actuality, my DJ Vlad sounding cousin is the majority, and so are you. You're not abnormal because of how you've so-called failed with them. It's quite the reverse. Maybe there is something wrong and it could be held against you, but in many cases, understand that what is not wrong with you will also be held against you. Just normal things. And you're not allowed to hold these same things against her. So it's a rigged game, gentlemen. And I know because I'm seeing this in the family. We all are. By the way, this cousin that has succeeded, this cousin that has succeeded has alienated a lot of family members with bad behaviors in recent years. Thanks for listening. I hope this helps. Until next time.